Hello everyone and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel. Today, I'm joined by my absolute ape of a co-host, Tanner Dykstra, and today we're here to talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the Legacy sequel. I think that's accurate. Has it been a long enough time?
It's been what has it been? It's been 7 years.
Yeah, okay, I don't know if it's long enough.
Not quite long enough.
But in the world, it's been a long time.
That's right.
Legacy sequel to the Planet of the Apes trilogy, but also technically still a prequel to the original Planet of the Apes. It's a whole thing.
It's a timeline.
Apes is weird. But Tanner, we have been looking forward to this.
Yes.
We have now seen it. We are both fans of different eras of the Apes series.
Absolutely.
And now a new era has begun.
That's right.
We got Noah. We got Raka.
Yeah.
We got May.
We got Proximus Caesar.
Yeah. Tanner, what do you think of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
Tucker, I was very much looking forward to this film. As we had sort of been talking about, this really feels like the kickoff to the summer blockbuster season.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed this. I think it's a great film. I was hoping to like it more, I would say. I think there are some shortfalls, and we'll get into those. But by and large, it is a high execution in terms of visuals.
Yeah.
It's likable. It's long. It's 2 hours and 25 minutes, I want to say. But I think it goes by at a pretty good clip. I like the characters. There is some third act reveals that promise some interesting sequels to come. So all in all, I did like it. I think it's quite good, but I'm sure we'll get into our issues with the film, because there are some.
Yeah, I think it's also good, but I think that for me, this very much feels like a churning of the wheels for a big action sequence, lots of CGI film. There isn't necessarily anything that I think this film does particularly special. I think that the progression and the culture of that 2010s Planet of the Apes trilogy was, I think, a lot stronger. I think Caesar's a much stronger character. I think that the older Apes films, the five from a long time
like the
ago,
60s and 70s,
and the Tim Burton movie, I think all these movies have a little bit more focus and intent. I'm not saying this is worse than some of those ones.
No.
Beneath the Planet of the Apes and whatever the last one is,
Tim
Battle,
Tim Burton, Planet of the Apes.
and that's also not very good.
Yeah.
But I think that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes just feels like, what if we made a Planet of the Apes movie without anything particularly special or any nugget of idea to stand on its own? And I think that for me, that is a very big problem. And it made this I'm going to get into my ebb and flow of how much I enjoyed this movie over the course of its runtime. But I left it thinking it was good, but disappointed on the whole, because I found the larger narrative, especially the pacing and the structure and the characters, to be relatively flat and have little of their own identity to stand on. And so, nothing against basically anyone involved in this film, but I just wish it had more panache. To me, it just felt like going through the motions of an action movie.
Sure. I mean, I can understand that, but I mean, Tucker, you've seen the five Orig, the Orig series.
Is that what they call it?
I don't know.
Fandom?
That's what I'm calling it. And I've seen basically everything after that.
Yeah.
I've seen the Burtons. I've seen the Matt Reeves, Rupert Wyatt stuff from the 2010s. But ultimately, I feel that this film does give us something unique. It is like apes, hundreds of years after they've taken over the world, essentially living in their society. The humans are basically these wild animals running around. It's basically the setting that Charlton Heston lands on in that first film.
Well, actually, I mean, the apes in that are much more advanced,
of course. But effectively, it is that, but without our fish out of water main character.
Yes.
Our main characters here are apes who this is all they know.
Yes.
And I think from that standpoint, it approaches its ideas with a lot of strength.
Yeah.
Its ideas about the idea of who has the right to rule the world, and these two groups of, as we learn, sentient beings, both wanting to have dominion over the planet, is there such a thing as the right to have that? And if sentience and civilization necessitates the presence of violence, I think all these ideas are present and explored in this film to a certain degree, and will certainly be fleshed out more as we go further into this presumed trilogy or series or whatever.
It's definitely setting up for me what seems to be the more interesting elements of this story, and I concede that this is a unique story for the Apes movies of early on in the Apes having taken over.
It's something we haven't seen before in the series, effectively.
Well, I mean, if you watch Conquest of the Planet of the Apes or the fifth one. I can't remember the name of. I think Battle. They are a little bit more in that area, but for me, I think the problem is that yes, all these ideas are in there. It is a totally interesting era to set it in terms of Caesar is kind of being almost a religious figure that they're looking back at.
He's like messianic
and I like that, and I like the idea of smaller tribes of apes and the larger kingdom that Proximus is setting up. I think these are all good ideas, but I think for me, outside of a few key exceptions, I found the characters so weak
let's talk about that.
I didn't find the themes explored in a very personal way. I'm like, yes, okay, civilization, violence, intelligence, sentience, great. But I didn't really care about the themes because I found the supporting cast to be incredibly weak, and I found Noah to be even weaker.
Sure.
I think
let's talk about the characters here, because our main character is Noah, as portrayed in mocap and voiced by Owen Teague.
Sure.
Who I was not familiar with.
Yeah.
Like with a lot of these films, they're bringing up, they're like Chris Pratt to be an ape or anything like that. I thought he was good, and I understand our issues, and we talked about this a little bit last night after we got out of the theater, that you don't really care for Noah as a protagonist.
No, it's not that I don't care for him. I don't care about him in
don't
particular.
care about him. Okay.
Because I think that Noah's problem is that he feels like a silent protagonist, stereotypical, just like going out for revenge. Doesn't have any particularly strong personality in one way or another. He's not particularly headstrong. He's kind of headstrong. He's not like incredibly loyal. He's pretty loyal. Like he has all these traits that go kind of halfway. But instead of me coming out the other end being like, okay, he's got all these half traits that make him a very well-rounded character, he just feels like an unfocused character. And I mean, I know it's difficult, but his design isn't particularly engaging. He doesn't like have any particularly memorable lines, and the ones that he does that are like delivered with the music, I'm like, that's pretty generic. Like he just feels like the hero character.
Sure,
to
no,
me.
and Tucker,
and I find that disappointing.
And here's what I'll say. I agree in some parts with that. I totally agree that he's no Caesar. Let's say he's not. He doesn't have that sort of like thrust that Caesar
or Cornelius
has.
or Zeus. And like there's this history of unique and commanding presences, even if they have the conflicts and problems for their personality. He almost feels like like what people would say is like, oh, just like kind of a Mary Sue, just like general.
Here's what I'll say.
Main character.
He is like, I don't know if this is blasphemous or not. I don't know if Tucker's going to choke me out from across the table here. He's
Warming up
like
my grippers.
Luke Skywalker.
Oh, sure, yeah. I actually do agree with that.
Yeah, he's like Luke Skywalker or Neo from The Matrix or whatever.
Yeah. He's a blank slate.
There is a merit to, if you're creating a far-off fantasy world, sci-fi fantasy, what have you, to having a character that an audience member, any audience member can easily project themselves onto, learn about the world, get ingratiated into it. I think Noah is that, and there are better examples of it, like Luke Skywalker or Neo. Yeah. But I think the archetype for that character is there, and that's what they're trying to do.
No, that's definitely true, and I totally recognize that. But also, I mean, Luke Skywalker of those three you named is easily my favorite.
Sure,
but
of course.
He's also not even close to my favorite Star Wars character.
Yeah, exactly.
I much prefer the characters that have a stronger personality, a more interesting backstory. I don't know. Actually, he's got a pretty interesting backstory. Luke Skywalker.
Oh yeah, I mean, fairly.
But
yes.
But I honestly like Luke Skywalker once he's grown up and become grizzled, and like Last Jedi Luke Skywalker.
Well, talk about you careful. You praising Last Jedi on the internet? Hold on a second.
But because he feels a little more different.
Of course,
then. But Noah, he is, I think, introduced, and the pacing and the script of this film, and especially his supporting cast, feel very flat to me, and so he's never really given the chance for me to be like, oh, I like this character in particular. I am interested in seeing more from him in particular, rather than he is the protagonist and I will be following him.
Sure,
it feels like this is what's going to shepherd me into a world that I find interesting, but I wish I also found him interesting. And I think that his supporting cast, particularly his two friends, Suna and Anaya, and his mother and father, I think I'm more frustrated that he's a flat character, but I think they're almost as equally flat characters.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, Anaya actually kind of has a personality because he's
a little bit of a coward.
Yeah, but he's also kind of brash at
Exactly.
sometimes. But like everyone else, I'm just like, yeah, the mother's the mother character that he cares a lot about, but the girlfriend character's the girlfriend character that he cares a lot about.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that, Tucker, is that ultimately we don't spend a majority of the film with those characters. We spend a majority of the film with our human character, May, and along with the best character in this film, Raka.
Yes, and Raka is great.
Yeah.
He has a very unique design. Absolutely. He's got a unique voice. He's got a sense of humor about him. He has a unique personality and connection to the world that I think basically anytime that Raka is on screen, I think he brings the best out of both May and Noah.
Yep.
I think that the way that he talks about the world and it delivers, let's be honest, exposition.
Yes.
But delivers it in, I think, a very compelling way.
But you know, they set him up as, and I guess we should probably say spoilers for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at this point. Yeah. He sets himself up, or his character is, what do they call it? Like the apostles of the org. What do they call themselves? They're followers of Caesar, essentially.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact name.
Yeah, something like that. The Knights of Caesar.
Sure.
And he's like trying to figure out books and things that the humans left behind, and following these tenets that have been set up by Caesar, as we mentioned, sort of like a religious figure, where he is like, hey, you should be nice to humans sometimes, and ape shall not kill ape, and ape together strong. And so he serves as a catalyst to like try and bridge the gap between Noah and May, or Nova as she's initially called, because they are distrustful of one another, as apes and humans would be in this world. And he's trying to hope for a better future and like educating Noah and telling him about these things. And so that from that standpoint, he's obviously very interesting. And of course, this is where spoilers come in. So if you haven't seen the film, he must sacrifice himself to sort of thrust our characters onto their own journey to continue these journeys of self-discovery.
But also, he's not dead.
That's true.
He's not dead. He's coming back.
He could be. He might not be.
Because I feel like he is so next level in terms of personality and likability, frankly, that I just think that it would be a very big missed opportunity. Sure, especially also because I think he plays such an interesting role in this world as the last follower of Caesar. I don't know if that's exactly true, but
he says it's true.
But I think that he will come back. I'm excited for him to come back. But I think that's a great example of I want to see more Raka.
Exactly.
I want to see him come back. I want to see him try to rebuild the civilization. And I like that he inspires Noah. I like that he is kind of the Obi-Wan Kenobi to his Luke Skywalker in terms of pushing him outside of his comfort zone and teaching him things about
here's a little bit about the world, about history, about the past, and we should talk about May as well. And so this is I said major spoilers already. This is the real like stuff they were hiding in the trailer. So if you really want to go into this film without knowing anything, now's the time to click away. May can talk. She is an intelligent human being, such that we've seen like before the events of the Planet of the Apes film.
Much like your fine hooks at Backlog Banter.
Hey, listen, we're not that not to brag. But I can use the English language.
Wow. I can use my speaking to critique movies.
He's right. I like May.
Yeah. I think I like May, and I think May only gets better as the movie goes on.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think there are some issues wherein she and a character introduced later, Trevathan, portrayed by William H. Macy, they have to, we love to see him, have to do a little bit of like more exposition that doesn't feel as natural or fun as it does when it's coming from Raka. When they're like, this is a fucking government vault, and there's stuff down here that we need, and that's obviously that's what's in there, and that feels a little bit to me like betraying the sci-fi world building a little bit. It's like, how do these characters know this? It's been presumably at least 100 years in a post-apocalyptic world with no communication.
250 or something like that?
Wes Ball threw out 250 as a number like at the beginning of the marketing cycle, but the film only says many generations later.
That is so vague.
Yeah.
It could mean anything.
As we looked up, chimps only live for like 90 years, or 30 years rather, so it could be like less than 100 years.
Sure, yeah. May, I think, is maybe the most interesting part of this movie in terms of what her type of character and her character in specific means for the future of this series, this world. I think that everything that's centered around her in terms of the mystery of why can she speak, where did she come from before, I think are very, very compelling. And I don't know the actress's name, but I think she does a
find it
totally
here.
I think she does a totally fine job. I
Yeah.
don't think that I think that there are moments in the film where she's not given a lot to work with, and so she's kind of just like in the background. But I think that learning about her is the most interesting part of this movie, because when it comes to Noah, or when it comes to Raka, we get his bit from the beginning. We get his history. We know where he's going. We know his personality. That's fine. It's great. I love Raka. He's my favorite character in the movie. And Noah, again, I don't really care to learn more about him, but also it feels like we're not going to learn anything surprising about him. It's like, yep, he's gonna save his family,
what if
and he's gonna be a leader.
The descendant of Caesar.
He probably is.
Might be.
He actually probably most definitely
But
is.
also, how would he find that out? It's not like they keep records.
Well, here's the thing, and I think that
Okay.
I want to dive into what I was talking about earlier, my ebbs and flows of being
Okay.
invested in this movie.
Okay.
I think this movie's biggest strength and one of its biggest weaknesses is the way it doles out its world and the way it paces different sequences and things. Because this movie is very much predicated on mystery, and
Absolutely.
I think that the first act of this movie is lacking that. I felt
Sure, of course.
a little
it's
bit
more of a classic adventure, like, village gets ransacked. I have to go seek revenge on them and free them and rescue them.
Yeah, but as I think we are getting more and more drip feeded, who are these apes in the masks? Why do they want? What is those apes' goals?
They capture these people. Why are they doing that?
Yeah, and why do they have a human? Why do they want what's in the vault? I think it sets up a lot of mysteries that by the end of the film, I was interested in finding out what the answers to the mysteries were.
Yeah.
We were introduced to a new mystery. Okay, Proximus, which I want to get to Proximus. I think he's also great.
Yeah.
Proximus introduced. Okay, that's very interesting. This camp set up, the tribes that he's been kidnapping, the kingdom that he wants to establish. Okay, these are interesting mysteries. I want to see where this goes. He has a human. He specifically wants Noah and May. Did he know that May could talk? There's some questions there, but these are mysteries. I'm like, all right, great.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see where this goes. But I do think that at a certain point, the answers to the mysteries aren't particularly revelatory. It's
exactly.
Like, all right, he wants weapons, and May wants also what's inside the vault.
Yeah.
How'd you know? I don't know. He's capturing all these apes to get in the vault. He wants power.
I totally understand.
I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm setting up all these things, but then I'm like, yeah, I could have told you that.
I agree, and that's my issue with what I had said earlier with like, all right, we want inside the vault, and guess what? It's a government vault.
Yeah.
And so when they said that, I was like, oh, is there a fucking nuclear missile in there? Is there? But no, it's just like guns and tanks and stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, the communications chip that allows people to talk to other human encampments. So ultimately, it's not like that satisfying of a reveal as to what's in there.
I don't think almost any of the reveals in this movie are particularly satisfying.
Yeah.
There's not really any twists other than, I don't know, Rocket dies.
I mean, the closest thing to a twist is a really cool scene. It's when Noah talks, or not Noah, May talks for the first time. Yeah. And it's
but also
she screams
I saw that coming.
You did?
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't really know that she would be like an intelligent human being.
Sure. Well, I guess maybe my thought process is brought back more to the older Apes movies, where every other Apes movie has intelligent human characters.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, okay, so that's probably what's going to happen. I do think that it is established early on that no humans can talk, and so by the film's own world, it's surprising that she can talk. Yeah. But my expectation was like, she's gonna say something. I thought, because also she looks more intelligent. She's smarter.
She's wearing like actual human clothes instead of like a loincloth or whatever.
I'm like, she can talk.
But I think it's a cool reveal. It comes out of a very tense moment in this like grassy field. Yeah. And then she says,
that's a very good scene. Actually,
she says Noah, which is like a cool little inversion of the scene in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, where Caesar's first word is no. Like he screams that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're planning. They're like, hey, that's clever. But also, I think you have to be really in the know to make that.
No. I think a lot of the like vestiges of what's been left over from the Reeves trilogy, like the symbol of the Force Caesar has become very interesting. Which, if people remember from those first three films, it's like the window in the attic where he lived in James Franco's house has become like this religious symbol, which is cool, like to track over the course of this series. And I think world building stuff like that is very cool.
Definitely.
Let's talk about Proximus Caesar.
Sure.
I think he's cool. I dig him.
I think he's great. And I think that that's because, well, I don't think his motivations are particularly exceptional.
He wants to put together a kingdom and collect power and guns and whatever's in the vault to take over the world.
But I think that even though his motivation is relatively generic, frankly, I think that Kevin Durand gives an amazing performance. I think that his sense of humor and his physical presence and the way that he presents himself as like surprisingly trusting and like he and like he's saying things that without the knowledge that he wants to take over the world. It's a little bit unclear, but without the like background, like
it's also it's okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Without the like darker part to his character, he seems pretty chill. He's a leader. He's a like cult leader, but like I don't know. I think he's an interesting villain because he has that appeal to him, where it's like I can understand why.
Yeah, I mean,
people are flocking to him.
He's charismatic. He's also much more well spoken, from our perspective, than all the other apes in the film because he is being taught nightly by our William H. Macy character Trevathan, who is like reading him books and stuff like that. So I think from that standpoint, like, he is interesting. He doesn't do anything particularly interesting in terms of
do almost anything.
His plot or his plan. He's like, want to get in the vault? Oh, you got the vault open, and it's the third act action sequence.
Yeah,
and then he spoilers again. He gets pushed off a cliff by a bunch of eagles.
Yes, he does. And he also might not be dead. He fell in the water. That's a pretty big fall.
It's a pretty big fall, but we've seen characters in films, sort of survive that kind of thing before. Like Noah. But anyway, I mean, I think he's good. I
hope he comes back as like a cyborg Proximus, Mecha Proximus.
Well, I was gonna say for Rockeye, I could definitely see at the end of the second movie we see him. He like comes out. He's on a crutch or whatever, maybe.
Oh, totally. He comes out of the shadows.
Yeah, he comes out.
There's like a campfire and it's like a light. Yeah.
But he's gathered a bunch of other followers of Caesar and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tucker, there was one last thing. Oh, Tucker, we should talk about how good this film looks and the direction of Wes Ball. Sure. Because he is coming out of the woodwork for this series. First of all, as with all the other previous Apes films, it looks fantastic. It looks great. It looks flawless. Yeah. From a VFX execution standpoint.
Yeah. From a visual texture standpoint, you're looking at the animation on the face. I think that my biggest compliment to the visual effects of this film are the ways in which the animated characters, which is all of them, interact with light. I think is really remarkable. I think that the ways that firelight will reflect off of our faces, or I think especially to the moments in which they're experiencing something like kind of mind opening. I think the performances by the actors under the motion capture and the visual effects sell all these moments really, really well. I think it's remarkable. I think it's great work. I think that this movie is a little bit like grayer than I would have wanted. It's like
really?
It's green, but it's like a gray green. I don't know. I wasn't sold by the vibrancy of the world particularly strong. But,
I get that. I mean, I think it's much more lush than films coming off of like the Matt Reeves one, totally. Where it's like all dark, rainy forests or snowy landscapes or things like that. I mean, as I said, flawless. For whatever reason, it always seems like the orangutans are the ones that look the best, which is very interesting to me. Why are orangutans more easily done to be, photorealistic than chimps or gorillas? Who's to say? But it's all photorealistic. It's all fantastic. As for Wes Ball, people have had some questions going in about like, hey, this is kind of like a means testing thing for your Zelda movie. Yeah. I think he is showing a lot of strength here as like a VFX heavy filmmaker. Sure. Whether it be entirely CGI or VFX, settings and frames and stuff like that, or real footage with CGI stuff implemented in. I think it's both very strong. The composition of frames is very strong in both. The interaction with light and the sense of place and scale is all very good. Yeah. Like, no complaints there at all.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that the reason I don't love his direction is because I don't love the movie. Okay. It takes for me to feel direction, it takes either a narrative that I really, really care about, where I feel like, oh, a director really brought this to screen with like a lot of focus, which I don't think this movie feels particularly focused, because as I said at the beginning, it kind of feels like it's going through some just like tropey stuff. or it takes a visual style that is so distinct that I'm like, oh, no one else could have made this. And this is neither of those, but it is totally serviceable. He did a good job. It's very hard to direct a VFX forward film like this.
And when you're doing something like The Legend of Zelda, you're not exactly going to be putting your own artistic spin on it.
Of course.
Nintendo's gonna be grabbing those reins. They just want a guy who can execute.
Well, and that is why I am totally fine with him being the director for Zelda. Is I think that his direction is solid, but I think that with the frankly very meticulous oversight of Nintendo and the role and personality of Zelda, I think that he can be leveled up. I think that if he's given better producer direction in terms of we need this to look this certain way, we need this to have this kind of really unique musical cue that has a distinct melody, which the music in this movie is fine, but it's not particularly memorable.
I like the music. I think it is like a throwback to like some 60s era score and stuff like that. There, like at the bridge, there are some like kettle drums or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like this feels like I'm watching like a 1968 Planet of the Apes with the score.
But I have confidence that the combination of West Ball and Nintendo, the one sticky wicket in this is Avi Arad.
Oh well, you know he can be a bit touch and go. I mean, with his produced films. So we'll see.
Mostly I want to go out of the theater. I don't want to watch this shit. But this is a good movie, and the thing I want to end on is I think that this establishes things that, well, in this movie, I don't think are established in the greatest way. Yeah. Because I think there's some world building stuff that feels like we're kind of jumping the shark a little bit.
I get you.
I'm excited to see where it goes. But by the end of this film, we learned that human civilization still exists. There are settlements. There's
Fort Wayne, Indiana. You're still alive. You're making it out of there.
Wait, so did she ride a horse all the way from the coast to Indiana?
No, because they radioed to Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Sorry.
But she's like somewhere in the plains, so she rode across like hundreds of miles on horseback, which is what I mean. But like, I agree. And,
the human world building stuff will be interesting to see where it goes, and I think there are answers to why it feels so weird. But ultimately it ends up feeling weird. When you're watching the movie, you're like, wait, why? How?
And that's my thing. This is largely divorced from the film that is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It is pure speculation on what will come. We don't even have confirmed sequels for this.
Well, because we'll have to see if it makes its money back.
That's a fair point. But also, like, I look at that ending where there's other intelligent humans and they like want to reclaim the world. It's like, so are we just gonna do like War for the Planet of the Apes again? Like, or is it just gonna be the same conflict? Yeah. I mean, I guess the apes' position is raised and is different. Yeah. They don't remember being like imprisoned and being apes in a human world, but from that standpoint, I was like, is this gonna be like humans versus apes again on a large military scale?
The hope would be that this is much more a trying to build a coexistent civilization. Yeah. I think that would be very interesting. I think it would feel unique. I mean, that's been obviously the main conflict of all of these films is, can these two sentient civilizations coexist?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this film plants a lot of very interesting seeds in that way of Noah becoming more trusting, but also kind of not. Because a very significant part of the last act of the film is that while he's learning to be trusting, he discovers a couple things that make him think that he can't trust humans. Exactly. And so it's like, well, where's that going to go? Yeah. And I want to see. I think that this film, again, the world building is there. The ideas and themes of Planet of the Apes for the entire saga are definitely present. I think this presents a unique era and a unique twist on terms of apes being the entirely dominant force in this film. But I think that to me it feels like set up for interesting payoff, hopefully, but not particularly interesting setup.
No, that's fair. Okay. Well, I find it interesting. Yeah. And what I really want to know is, when's that spaceship coming back?
What do you mean?
The Charlton Heston spaceship, which is planted in the first movie. They're like, hey, spaceship gone missing. Don't know where that is.
Yeah. Well, because I'm gonna need to do a little bit of apes looking back and do some lore research. But so I like this movie. I think it is good. I think the performances are solid. I happen to be very much a character forward guy. Yeah. And this movie, is character forward.
You're not
but it's
eaten
not
from that perspective.
No, I think it's pretty weak from that perspective. There are glimmers of hope in terms of the personality that Rocket and Proximus bring, and I think May again only gets more interesting as the movie goes. But
And in future films, if Noah is the protagonist of future films,
he could become more interesting.
Yeah,
certainly,
for sure.
certainly. But so I'm gonna give this movie a 6.5 out of 10.
I'm gonna go a 7.7.
7.
7.
All right. Well, thank you very much for watching, everyone. We will see you guys in a couple years for the other one that hasn't been announced yet.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.